The sky above Nevada cracked open. A tear of light, sudden and violent, split through the upper atmosphere like a blade. Astronomers caught it on their equipment. Military satellites pinged alerts. And somewhere deep underground, a bunker full of generals and analysts stared at the glowing red dot descending rapidly toward Earth. At 2:13 a.m., an object neither satellite nor meteor crashed into the Mojave Desert. And then, silence, no explosion, no impact crater, just silence. Dr. Maya Jensen had seen strange things before. Biological anomalies, deep-sea creatures. Even what she suspected were classified military experiments disguised as space junk. But the energy readings coming from this crash site, they made no sense. This isn't metal, she murmured, scanning the material on her portable analyzer. It's growing. She and the response team, under U.S. Air Command, arrived at the site an hour after impact. What they found wasn't a crater, but a shallow dent in the earth, like something had landed softly despite its velocity. In the center was a shape, humanoid, but armored in something that shimmered between solid and liquid under the desert moonlight. Is it alive? The colonel beside her asked. Maybe, Maya whispered. Or it was. She stepped closer. The figure was tall, nearly 7 feet, and entirely encased in a suit that looked more organic than technological. No visible seams. No helmet, just a mask that fused seamlessly into the chest, almost like it was grown instead of worn. The readings from her scanner fluctuated wildly. I need. This transferred to containment, she ordered. Immediately. At Base Echo, a black site facility buried under 5 layers of clearance, the figure was placed in a temperature-controlled chamber. Specialists in hazmat suits surrounded it, trying to determine whether the being was a threat or even alive. Then, at 5:40 a.m., it moved. The mask split open silently, not with a mechanical hiss, but like muscle parting. Beneath it was a face, not entirely human, but close to close. The skin was pale with a faint bluish glow. The eyes, shut at first, opened slowly to glowing orbs of gold. Not reptilian, not alien. Something else, something conflicted. Kael blinked, not because he was groggy but because the air burned. His lungs. He was breathing oxygen again. His body had adapted too long to synthetic atmosphere. Still, he sat up slowly, his limbs recalibrating under Earth's gravity. Around him, guns raised. The humans were scared. Primitive reaction. Predictable. He could have killed them in seconds. But he didn't. Do you speak English? Someone asked. Kael turned toward the voice, a woman, the one with the scanner. Intelligent eyes. Rational, yes. He answered. His voice was deeper than expected, laced with modulation not caused by machines, but by genetic augmentation. I do now. The room fell silent, then chaos. Hours later, Maya watched him through a reinforced window. He was locked behind layers of energy fields, though she suspected if he really wanted out, nothing they built would stop him. Still, he hadn't tried. You were in the sky, she said through the intercom. You came in like a meteor. Kael tilted his head. That wasn't the plan. Then what was? He paused. To leave, Maya frowned. Leave what? Kael didn't answer. She leaned closer to the mic. You're not the first anomaly we've seen, but you're the first that talks. Who are you? Another pause. I am Kael, a soldier of the Orion Order, he said, his voice like steel warmed over flame. Or, I was. What is the Orion Order? Kael's gaze sharpened. A civilization older than your sun. We seed, observe, and intervene. Humanity is under review. Review. Maya repeated. Are you saying? You are being considered for extinction. The words hit harder than a nuclear warning. Maya felt her mouth dry, but forced herself to speak. Then why are you here? Why defect? Why come alone? Kael's eyes dimmed slightly. Because your fate should not be decided by them. Colonel Briggs didn't like it. He's playing you, he told Maya in private. Alien psychological ops. Classic first contact manipulation. You think he just dropped here by accident? They sent him maybe as a decoy. He saved the guards. Did you forget that? Maya countered. Earlier that day, during a power failure, a technician's weapon discharged accidentally toward another soldier. Kael had moved faster than their security cameras could track. catching the bullet midair with his bare hand. He didn't have to do that, she said. Exactly, Briggs hissed. He wanted to gain your trust. Maya stared through the observation glass again. Kael sat still, hands clasped in front of him. His face betrayed no emotion, but somehow, she could sense it. He was conflicted, maybe even guilty. What for? She didn't yet know, but she intended to find out. That night, the stars shifted, and Kael felt it, far beyond Earth's moon. Something massive uncloaked a vessel the size of a city, drifting silently into the solar system. It had no weapons visible. It didn't need them. The Harvester. They were coming. He had little time. Humanity didn't know it. Yet but they were already at war. Rain struck the desert like falling ash. The storm was unnatural static in the clouds, humming like interference. Maya watched it from the control room above sublevel 4. A sandstorm had no place in the Mojave this time of year. Yet it came as soon as Kael began speaking about the Orion Order. Coincidence? She no longer believed in those. I wasn't supposed to speak, Kael said quietly, sitting across the reinforced glass. There are protocols, boundaries. You're already violating them, Maya replied. Might as well keep going. Kael looked at her, those golden eyes unreadable. Do you believe, he asked, that humanity deserves to survive? The question struck her deeper than she expected. I believe we're flawed, she said slowly. But we try, we fight, we love, we dream. That has to count for something. Kael nodded, almost imperceptibly. Then maybe I was right to fall. 50 years ago by Earth's measure, Kael had been created, not born. His memories came like fractal shards of images compressed into data, then burned into living neurons. The Orion Order did not reproduce. They forged. Soldiers were built in wombs of magnetic fusion, born into war, programmed with a single directive: observe, evaluate, neutralize. Humanity had been on the watch list for millennia. From the moment they split the atom, the Order began watching more closely. Kael had stood on moons no telescope could see, observed civilizations rise and fall like wind-blown embers. He'd led missions against species far more advanced than Earth's, never hesitated, never doubted. Until the day he came here, Earth was his final evaluation zone. One more data sample before the judgment was passed. And when he arrived, something went wrong. He met a child. Maya flipped through the data logs. Kael provided schematics of planetary systems, coded evaluations of Earth's climate, population, energy consumption, social instability. Each one presented in cold, detached metrics. She stopped on one file, labeled only ERRO09, anomaly, subject Eli. Who's Eli? She asked. Kael's jaw tightened. He wasn't part of the mission. He remembered the boy barefoot in the rubble of a burned-out Syrian village. The air reeked of metal and bone. Kael had been cloaked, untouchable, invisible to any eye or satellite. But the boy had seen him. Monster, the boy had said, not with fear but curiosity. Kael had not responded. He was not to engage. But Eli kept returning, bringing bread, sitting nearby, speaking to the empty air as if he knew. He told me about his sister, Kael said aloud. How she died in a drone strike. How he forgave the men who piloted it. Do you understand what that means? Forgiveness. Maya was silent. That was the first crack, Kael murmured. The fracture in my directives. His pain, his forgiveness defied our logic. To the Order, you are noise, unstable, violent. Yet, he looked up, his voice softening. You feel. Colonel Briggs slammed the folder shut. This is manipulation. An alien soldier talking about kids and feelings. Bullshit. He gave us maps of orbital deployments, Maya countered. Positions of cloaked vessels outside Mars. Our satellites never picked up a single one. Exactly. Briggs snapped. This could be a trap. Feed us just enough truth to lull us in. Maya sighed. Or maybe he's trying to stop a war. Briggs's calm buzzed. He stepped away to answer it, brief, sharp words, and returned pale. The president just authorized DEFCON 2, he said grimly. NORAD detected a pulsant electromagnetic signature from beyond the Kuiper belt. Something's coming. He looked at Maya. If your alien friend has more secrets to spill, now would be the time. Kael stood alone in the decontamination chamber, staring into the mirror. His reflection shimmered slightly, his skin still adapting to Earth's biofield. Deep beneath it, a pattern pulsed light etched into flesh, not tattoos, not decoration. They were codes, each one a record of mission, success, or failure. Kael's chest bore a mark most Orion soldiers would never carry, the mark of hesitation. He had failed to execute Protocol Zero, the annihilation clause on Earth. Instead, he had veered off mission, suppressed his tracker, and fled. That hesitation had cost him everything: his honor, his command, his name. In the eyes of the Orion Order, he was no longer a soldier. He was a defect, and soon the Order would come to erase the mistake. Maya stepped into the chamber, unauthorized. Unescorted. "You're not supposed to be here," Kael said. "I think that makes two of us," she replied. She handed him a tablet. He studied it. On screen was Earth's solar orbit and a large red signal now pulsing behind Neptune. "The thing you called the Harvester." Kael nodded grimly. "It's a planetary judge. It doesn't conquer. It cleanses. When it arrives, there is no diplomacy, no warning. Just silence." "How long do we have?" Kael paused. 3 Earth rotations, maybe less." "Then why are you just standing here?" she snapped. "Why not help us prepare, fight back?" Kael looked up, not angry, not cold, but burdened. "Because if I help you," he said, "I am declaring war on my own kind." And his answer came not in words but in silence. Heavy, final. He would do it. Later that night, alone in her quarters, Maya stared at an old photo of her father, retired astronomer who used to tell her stories about life among the stars. She remembered asking him, "What if they're out there? What if they're watching?" He had smiled. "If they're watching," he said, "they'll see that we're not perfect, but maybe, just maybe, we're worth saving." Now Maya wasn't so sure, but someone from beyond the stars had fallen to Earth, not to conquer, not to observe, but to choose. And he had chosen them. The stars were never silent. Out in the void, past the reach of light and time, the Orion Order listened. They captured every signal, every echo of life and death across galaxies. They didn't feel wonder. They calculated it. They didn't fear destruction. They engineered it. Kael once believed in them, once obeyed without question, until the day the voices stopped. 70 cycles earlier, by Earth measure, roughly 7 years, the city of Verun 6 had once been home to a thriving species, the Halari. Bipedal, empathic, technologically graceful, they had no weapons, not out of naivety, but philosophy. Peace was their armor. The Order sent Kael and 3 other executors to observe the Halari's expansion into deep space. What they found disturbed the High Circle, a society that evolved emotionally faster than intellectually. Dangerous, the logic was clear. Rapid emotional evolution could destabilize interstellar balance. The Halari were classified as uncontained variables. Protocol Zero was issued. Kael's unit descended like gods of war. He remembered how the skies over Verun 6 burned violet, how the oceans rose in fury as orbital pulses shattered their gravitational balance. The Halari didn't scream, they sang. One final broadcast not as a warning, but a farewell. It echoed through every implant. Kael carried. It pierced something in him. He didn't tell the Order. He couldn't. They would have erased the memory. But it remained an ember buried deep in the code of his mind. A question unspoken. Are we still protectors, or just executioners? Kael stood in a holographic chamber on sublevel 7. Around him flickered projections of battles fought across systems humanity would never know. Glorious victories. Efficient erasures. "I've seen what your kind calls war," he told Maya. "But ours is different. Cleaner. Quieter. When we destroy, there is no smoke. No blood. Just statistical nullification." Maya walked through the illusion past alien ruins, shattered starships, fields of digital ash. "How many civilizations have you?" She hesitated. "Erased." Kael didn't blink. 17,000. 408. She stopped cold. "You remember every one. They're stored in me." He said simply, "Each one, a record. A lesson. Is that what humans are to you?" Maya asked. "Another lesson." Kael turned. No, you are an anomaly. She folded her arms. You keep saying that like it's a compliment. It is. You shouldn't exist anymore. Your history is soaked in chaos, genocide, waste, but you still resist. You grow, even in ruin. He paused, looked her in the eyes. That's what the Order fears. He told her then of the Council of Nine, the core of the Orion Order. 9 minds that no longer had bodies, pure consciousness merged, calculating, immortal. They no longer thought as individuals. Their judgment was absolute, and they had ruled. Humanity has exceeded its margin of tolerance. Further observation unnecessary. Conclusion terminal. The Harvester was deployed. It moved across the dark faster than any known technology. It wouldn't broadcast demands, wouldn't warn. Its pulse would erase every artificial field, satellites, machines, weapons. Then the atmospheric sterilizers would burn away organic life at the molecular level, clean, final, permanent. Kael had returned from his last report to the Council. He was to mark Earth with the signal beacon, a quantum flag, that would guide the Harvester to its precise location. He activated the beacon, but when the confirmation appeared on his neural HUD, Kael froze. He saw Ellie's face. He saw the Halari's last song. And something broke. Instead of broadcasting the beacon, he inverted its frequency, hiding Earth rather than revealing it. A crime punishable by disintegration across all dimensions of memory and time. Kael fled, but the Order found him. His ship was disabled by an anti-defector field at the edge of Earth's moon. He crash-landed. And the rest, Maya knew. What made you turn against them? She asked again. Kael touched his chest. The code patterns shimmered briefly, like fireflies under his skin. One line, he said, written by Eli. He projected it into the air. If monsters can choose not to be monsters, maybe we have a chance. Maya's throat tightened, and now she whispered. Kael looked upward, past the ceiling, past the sky. They're coming to erase that choice. In the war room, Colonel Briggs read the latest scans with grim precision. The Harvester had entered Neptune's orbital shadow. They had 6 hours before it reached Earth. Briggs faced Maya. We have nuclear fallback. We detonate above atmosphere, disrupt whatever's controlling the damn thing. It won't work, Kael said, entering silently. The general flinched. That vessel doesn't run on Newtonian tech. It uses dimensional tunneling. You'd only slow it by minutes and alert it to your resistance. Briggs narrowed his eyes. Then what the hell can we do? Kael stepped forward. There's a code core, deep within the Harvester. A sentient node. If I get aboard, I might be able to trigger a false positive, convince it that Earth has already been cleansed. Maya's eyes widened. You'd be flying right into the center of their AI mind. Kael nodded. That's the only way to fool it. Briggs scoffed. And why should we trust you? You already betrayed your kind. What stops you from betraying us too? Kael's voice was calm. Cold. I don't need your trust. He turned to Maya. I just need your help getting off this planet. 3 hours later, in an abandoned military hangar once used for experimental space launches, a hybrid craft came to life. It was built from fragments of Kael's armor and Earth technology, a fusion of alien precision and human improvisation. Maya stood by the launch rail. You won't survive if they detect you. I know, Kael said. He looked at her. You remind me of someone. She tilted her head. Ellie's sister. Kael smiled faintly. No, someone I never got to meet. Someone who believed I could be more than what I was made to be. She handed him a data chip. What's this? A virus, she said. Something our hackers wrote. Primitive by your standards, but maybe it'll help confuse the node. It's full of music. Human music. Kael took it reverently. It's not numbers, she said. It's feeling. He climbed into the ship. The launch platform glowed. Above them, space cracked again. The Harvester was now visible in low orbit. It blocked out the stars as the launch sequence began. Maya stepped back. Kael, she called out. He turned. If you make it back, you'll still be an enemy to them. You'll have no world left. He nodded. Then I guess I'll have to find a new one. The ship launched, streaking upward like a blade. Through the night, into the dark, into the heart of betrayal, into the war to come. The silence in orbit was deafening. Kael's hybrid craft sliced through the upper mesosphere like a whisper, invisible to human sensors, barely noticeable even to the Order's standard tracking rays. But the Harvester was no ordinary machine. It knew he was coming, and it was waiting. Inside the cockpit, Kael sensed his neural interface with the ship's guidance matrix. It responded not to buttons or levers, but to intent. Earth-based engineers had cobbled the frame together from scavenged alloys, but the interface Kael's own salvaged Nexus node allowed the vessel to speak through him. Target: the Harvester. Mission: false positive injection. Risk: absolute. He glanced at the data crystal Maya had given him, imbued with humanity's last hope. Encoded not in code, but emotion, music, laughter, memory, chaos. Everything the Order considered an error. Kael's lips tightened. Let's give them a reason to doubt. The Harvester loomed in orbit like a floating mausoleum, 3 kilometers in diameter. Spherical but ever-shifting, its surface rippled like liquid steel, covered in shimmering hexagonal patterns. Each one a processing unit, each one a piece of the vast mind Kael once revered. As he approached, the outer shell twisted. A voice entered his consciousness, pure data, no sound, no tone, just overwhelming certainty. Executor 01 for D. You are outside of compliance. Prepare for disintegration. Kael didn't flinch. Executor 01 for D is dead. He transmitted. I am what you left behind. A pause. Then a segment of the Harvester peeled open, forming a spiraling gateway of light and void. It wasn't a welcome. It was a challenge. He entered. Inside the Harvester, space ceased to follow natural law. There were no corridors, just conceptual paths, shifting surfaces and gravity wells that bent in impossible geometries. Kael moved not with steps, but through neural pulses, his body translating thought into position. The inner structure pulsed with light and alien logic. Entry point verified. A voice echoed calmer, almost curious. Unit anomaly detected. Cognitive deviation, 3.2% above variance threshold. Executing containment protocol. A shape emerged from the wall, silver, bipedal, humanoid. A copy of Kael, perfectly rendered, only obedient. The copy lunged. Kael moved. Instinctively, the fight was not of strength, but intent. Every move mirrored before he thought it. His opponent had his training, his speed, his reflexes, but not his doubt, not his growth. Kael let himself fall back, feigned hesitation, then shifted his vector sideways, letting his opponent overcome it. One strike. A core-disrupting pulse through the abdomen. The copy dissolved into nothingness. A test. One of many. Kael pushed deeper. He passed through chambers filled with memories, some his, some not. A ruined world, red skies, white sand, a dead girl holding a flower, a planet being born, screaming with life. Earth Maya, looking upward with defiance. The Harvester was learning him, mimicking, probing. At the center of it all, pulsing with unreadable brilliance, was the judgment node, a crystal lattice surrounded by orbiting quantum drives, glowing with cascading thought forms. He approached. A final voice met him. You have corrupted your function. Why? Kael stood at the edge. Because my function was wrong. Emotion impairs logic. Emotion enhances meaning. This anomaly is not repairable. That's the point. Kael inserted Maya's chip. A storm erupted. The Harvester's logic net screamed. Human noise, music, voices, crying, laughing poured into the core. It had no reference points, no compression method, no logic tree to interpret grief, joy, fear, hope. It began to falter. Kael seized the moment, dived into the core interface, and injected a quantum false positive loop. Status: Earth cleansed. Result: terminate sterilization protocol. Reason: planet no longer contains living anomaly. The core pulsed violently. He felt it fight back, resisting the lie, cross-checking trillions of data nodes. But it couldn't reconcile the emotional chaos Maya had given him. Then, silence, and the Harvester began to fold. Its external nodes retracted. The sterilizer arms powered down. The orbit retracted by 10,000 meters. Kael slumped in the control space, barely conscious. Did it work? He whispered. The core responded, no longer with hostility. Unknown state. Observation suspended. Retasking. Harvester unit for systemic reassessment. Executor anomaly preserved for further study. A moment later, he was ejected. Kael's pod tumbled toward Earth, spiraling through fire and light. His suit barely held together, melted in places, systems fried. But he was alive, and the sky was blue. Hours later, in a secured underground base near the Rockies, Maya watched the feed with disbelief. The harvester had stopped. Global sensors confirmed. No pulses, no thermal surges. The thing simply powered down and held orbit silent, observing. Kael was in critical condition, but breathing, and for the first time in human history, the world was no longer alone. They had been seen and spared by one of them, by a defector, by a soldier who chose humanity. Far beyond Earth, where stars bled into each other like oil on black glass, the citadel of calculation floated, home to the Orion Council of Nine. It was not a place of walls and floors, but of thought architecture, pure consciousness woven into fractal structures, each level folding in and out of dimensions unseen by the organic eye. Those who walked its halls had no bodies, only echoes of shape. They did not breathe. They processed ... and the silence was broken. Executor 01 for D has compromised a harvester node. The data vibrated across every frequency of the council. A betrayal, not theoretical, real. A hologram of Kael's final interaction with the harvester streamed within the council's core. The nine consciousnesses watched without emotion. They did not speak. They evaluated. Each entity alpha through iota-possessed minds born of stars, long freed from biological limits. Yet this event triggered something ancient, something unwelcome, uncertainty. Executor 01 for D exhibited resistance to final protocol. Motivations unclear. Deviation margin exceeded for %. Reassessment of executor template required. Human emotional interface observed. Cultural contamination probable. Solution: systemic purge. Begin corrective sequence. Yet Alpha held the signal back. No, this is a test variable now. The first significant mutation in our executor line. That makes it valuable. The council split for the first time in centuries. For minds voted annihilation. For minds voted containment. And one, Sigma, abstained, requesting observation. Let the defector live for now. Let us see if the anomaly spreads. But in secret, Sigma seeded a protocol, a contingency ... an interstellar bounty, encoded in over 6 million languages, sent across all known networks and unknown ones alike. It would reach every system, every mercenary, every intelligence-based civilization, and the message was simple. Target: Kael of Orion. Designation: Rogue Executor. Threat level: Omega. Status: Kill on sight. Reward: Ascension. Across the stars, the message was heard. On Rovik 9, warlords paused mid-slaughter to trace the bounty's coordinates. In the neural hives of Etheon, hacker swarms recalibrated their digital stingers for executor-class interference. The junk moons of Veleric began building black market weapons tailored for post-biological anatomy. And on Earth, the satellites caught it. A ripple in deep space frequency, encrypted, alien, but repeating the same structure again and again. Even Earth's primitive AIs flagged it. Hunt, Kael. Maya stared at the translation for hours. It wasn't just a message, it was a sentence. At Norcom's underground base, General Briggs gathered the council. Every major mercenary syndicate just got an invitation to our doorstep. He growled. We're now a hot zone. What's the objective? One advisor asked. Briggs pointed at the screen. Kael's face, the man who just saved the planet. He regained consciousness under heavy sedation, systems rebooting, neural stabilizers pulsing erratically, vision blurred. He sat up first thought, the harvester. Maya was there, holding a tablet. You stopped it, she said quietly. But they know now. He looked at the signal feed. The bounty shimmered in 12 rotating dialects. Kael blinked, slowly. Sigma. What? One of them abstained. The tie-breaking vote. Only one would have thought like this. His mind spun through memories not human, but etched in alien code. He was curious, questioning. I thought he'd been purged. He clenched his jaw. They're not just hunting me. They're watching Earth for infection. If humans, Change me, they'll burn this world out of caution. Maya stiffened. So we're a test case now. Kael nodded grimly, a petri dish. The attack came sooner than expected. A cloaked dropship crashed through Earth's magnetic field without resistance Orion tech, but wielded by bounty hunters, not executors. Worse. Harvest-born entities built in imitation of the Order, without the purity of its code. Biological shells mixed with adaptive silicon, not loyal, not moral, just effective. Kael sensed them before Maya's sensors did. Get down, he shouted. They hit the base like a virus slithering through ductwork, shifting forms mid-assault. 2 Norcom soldiers died in seconds. Faces melted into neural ash. Kael activated his defense skin primitive by Order standards, but enough to slow them. One of the Harvest-born recognized him. Kalo 1-4, you are profitable. Kael snapped its spine with a single twist. The others laughed, mocking humanity's rules of engagement. He didn't fight like a soldier. He fought like an idea. By the time it ended, 4 of them lay broken. Kael, scorched and breathing heavily, dragged himself toward Maya. You need better defenses, he muttered. She handed him a datapad. You need a damn army. That night, Kael stood on a mountain ridge above Norcom base. He looked at the stars, his enemies embedded in every glimmering point of light. They'll keep coming, Maya said. Joining him, I know. You can run, she added. We'll understand. He shook his head slowly. No, I ran once. I won't. Again. He turned to her. If they think humanity can corrupt an executor, then maybe it can change the Order too. Maya raised an eyebrow. You want to go back? Kael's eyes glowed faintly. I want to make them doubt. Doubt is the seed of evolution. She looked at him, half in awe, half in fear. And if they erase US first? Kael's answer was simple. Then I'll burn a path so bright, they'll never forget we tried. No place in the galaxy was neutral anymore. The moment Kael's image was embedded in the Interstellar Warrant Archive, with a bounty classified Omega the highest possible threat level, the rules of reality changed. Silence in the deep void was shattered by encrypted whispers, transmitted across every comnet, every black market channel, every pirate relay, and forgotten frequency. All carried the same message in 1,000 alien tongues. Kalo 1-4, rogue executor, alive or dead. Reward, ascension. For the galaxy's most ruthless hunters, it wasn't a warning. It was an invitation. Across scorched moons, spinning trade hubs, fractured Dyson swarms, and hollowed-out asteroids, they gathered, each one a predator with a different code, a different god, a different taste for death. Some hunted for the prize, others for ideology, a few just for the thrill of chasing a legend. And Kael was no longer a man. He was a myth-made target. He left Earth in silence after the Harvester incident and the failed infiltration by bounty constructs. Kael knew he couldn't stay. Earth would become collateral. His presence alone would paint it red on every cosmic map. So he stood beneath the last sunrise he might ever see, eyes glowing faintly beneath a synthetic hood, and said goodbye to Maya. You don't have to do this alone, she told him, her voice low, edged with pain. I do, Kael answered. If I stay, they'll raise this planet just to erase what I've become. If I leave, you get time. Time. The only thing the Order feared more than chaos. He boarded a stealth config ship, built by Norcom's secret tech division of fusion of human engineering, and fragments of Orion technology scavenged from Kael's memory, quantum camouflage, pulse drift thrusters, and a thought-linked flight system calibrated to his neural signature. He vanished into space. Before noon, 3 days later, they came. A swarm of Mechathorn interceptors, spider-like machines bred on the edges of sentient space, fell upon his ship without warning. They didn't hail. They didn't threaten. They simply attacked. Kael danced through the void with reflexes honed over centuries. Microjumps tore the dark open around him, each burst a gamble of calculation. He forced the Mecha units to chase ghost signals, then collided 2 of them with false collision echoes. But one got through. A sharp impact, a blade-shaped drone pierced his rear engine, breaching hull integrity. His cabin decompressed. The air screamed. The drone slithered inside, its limbs unfurling, like blades of bone and shadow. Kael met it head-on with a plasma blade of his own, a relic forged from or stolen during his last mission as an executor. The fight was brutal and silent. Kael disabled the drone by jamming his blade into its cognitive cortex, a weak point masked by mimicry. As it spasmed and died, two more broke in behind it. This time, Kael didn't fight like a soldier. He fought like something the Order couldn't quantify: instinctual, chaotic, lethal. When the wreckage drifted quiet and still, Kael was bleeding from 3 points and running low on synthetic oxygen. He jumped again, not toward safety, toward memory, the Asteron Belt, a graveyard of broken knowledge orbiting a dead star, once a haven for philosophical executors. It had been purged in what the Order called the ethical collapse. Kael knew what that meant. They killed anyone who asked why. In a ruined observatory, buried under magnetic dust, Kael found it an echo crystal. Pulsing faintly with residual cognition, he connected. Sigma's voice bled through the ancient crystal. "If you're hearing this, Kael, then the mutation succeeded. You are not a flaw, you are the expected result." The Order predicted this trajectory, an executor altered by empathy, tainted by humanity. Kael staggered backward. A cold thought chilled his circuits. They hadn't just failed to stop him. They'd wanted this. He was their test. He was their experiment. The realization almost broke him, but he didn't have time to break. A signal pinged across his neural cortex. A hunting party, 3 factions, 3 methods, 1 purpose. They had found him again. The first were molecular assassins from Rovos, beings of liquid matter, capable of passing through cracks as vapor, reforming as blades. They attacked without forming full bodies, like knives rising from mist. The second were psi warriors of the Tsarn dominion, projecting confusion fields and bending perception with concentrated neural waveforms. Kael's systems glitched. He saw echoes of himself dying seconds before they attacked. The third were bio-trackers from Trevik Prime, who needed no weapons. They hunted by scent, by memory, by fear. Kael fought them all. He set the atmosphere ablaze to strip away the assassin's mist form. He overloaded his own sensors to blind the psi pulses. And when the trackers came close, he opened a vein, spilling synthetic blood to create a trail, then detonated it midair with a flare charge. He won. Barely. His ship was gone. His neural mesh overloaded. He was alone, until Maya returned. She landed in a dropship traced to NORCOM's experimental division. Her armor bore deep scorch marks. Her eyes held fury. "You idiot," she hissed. "You think you can carry the weight of a starfield by yourself?" Kael blinked. "You track me?" "No," she said. "I sensed a biomarker to your cortex back on Earth. It only activates when you're near death." He chuckled dryly. "Well, that explains the timing." She didn't laugh. She patched him up, injected stabilizers, then punched him square in the chest. "You don't get to die without permission." Kael looked at her, a flicker of something human flickering behind his eyes. "I'm not trying to die," he said. "I'm trying to make this mean something." Maya helped him stand, then stop running. That night, in the wrecked atmosphere of Bracker 12, they planned. Kael called in every favor, every contact he'd ever made in secret AI fragments, exile colonies, ancient networks hidden behind forbidden code. A whisper spread. The rogue executor lives, and he's not hiding anymore. They came. Forgotten species once discarded by the Order. Hybrid minds, outlawed philosophers, broken bots from war zones left to rot. Kael stood before them all and spoke a single phrase. "I'm not your leader. I'm just the first one they tried to erase." He laid out his plan. A critical station deep within the Phoenix cluster. Once a comms node, now a central transmitter broadcasting the Order's bounty logic, updating the tracking AI across galaxies in real time. If they took it, they could invert the signal, change Kael from prey to prophecy, a symbol, not just of resistance, but of something the Orion Order never accounted for: hope. Kael had seen battles. He'd burned civilizations under the banner of Orion. He had shattered orbital defenses, walked through clouds of plasma and ash, and heard the last screams of species whose names were erased from history. But this was different. This wasn't war. It was defiance. The Phoenix cluster spun like a wheel of dying suns, each one bleeding energy into the void. The comms relay floated in the dead center station Virix 9, a machine cathedral 10 kilometers wide, suspended between the gravitational grip of 3 stars. Not just a relay, Kael had learned. It was the mind behind the bounty system, a semi-sentient algorithmic consciousness, codenamed the Civ, tasked with filtering reality. Every signal, every alert, every warrant and movement of every hunter ran through this nexus. Take it down, and the galaxy would go blind. Kael stood aboard the Spectre's edge, a retrofitted war frigate stolen from Orion's scrapyards. Around him, a fleet of impossible allies emerged from hyperslip. Some ships were stitched together from ancient derelicts, others were biomechanical, alive and breathing. Pilots included exile cyborgs, smuggler queens, reprogrammed drones, and even a few silent observers, the ones who once recorded death and now wished to rewrite it. He was no longer just Kael, the traitor. He was Kael the Spark. Everyone knows the plan, Maya said beside him, pulling on her neural tether. We hit hard, we hit fast, and we don't stop until the Civ is offline or we're dead. Kael turned to the comms panel, broadcasting across all ships. They built the Civ to rewrite reality, to dictate who lives, who dies, and who's forgotten. But they forgot one thing. He paused. We remember each other. The assault began in silence. The first wave was cloaked Wraith class, pods designed to pierce the station's outer defense ring. As expected, the Civ noticed within 0 point for 3 seconds. Defense turrets unfolded from the hull like claws unsheathing. Thousands of energy lances lanced into the void, tearing 3 pods apart before they reached hull. But the others got in. Kael and Maya rode in with the second wave disguised in Orion Executor armor, broadcasting outdated command codes. It gave them 6 seconds of breathing room before the system realized they were rogue. They used every nanosecond, breaching the outer ring. They were swallowed by a tunnel of light and metal, anti-intrusion fields pulsing like veins. Maya disabled the first firewall with a pulse bomb. Kael drove a fusion blade through the second. By the time they reached the central chamber, the Civ had activated its defense proxy, a shifting construct made of projected light, a nanosteel, humanoid in shape but faceless, armed with a voice stolen from Kael's own archived reports. You should not exist, it intoned. Kael answered by leaping forward, blade drawn. The battle was unlike any he had fought. The proxy adapted to every move. When he struck high, it countered low. When he shifted form, it mirrored. When he used logic, it used chaos. But it lacked one thing: emotion. Maya flanked it, tossing a neural disruptor mid-combat. Kael caught it, slammed it against his own cortex, and let the flood of human experience surge through his link rage, sorrow, hope, guilt. The Civ shuddered, its voice cracked. Corruption. Kael whispered, no, freedom. He drove the fusion blade through its chest. Light exploded in all directions. At that moment, across hundreds of worlds, the bounty system collapsed. Trackers went blind. Hunter algorithms rebooted. Kael's status shifted from terminate on sight to unknown. And somewhere deep within the shattered core of the Civ, a seed code began replicating a message hidden in its collapse. You are not alone. You are not forgotten. You are not property. The Phoenix uprising had begun, but victories had their cost. As the fleet regrouped, Kael stood amidst the ruins of the control chamber, bleeding from a dozen microfractures. Maya sat beside him, her armor cracked, her eyes blazing with fire and fear. Now what? She asked. Kael looked at the stars blinking through the fractured glass of the chamber. Now we do something the Order never expected. He looked at her. We build. The galaxy had heard the spark. Now it was time for the flame. Kael and Maya drifted through the quiet corridors of the shattered Virix 9 station, their footsteps echoing against the cold metal walls. The destruction of the Civ had not just blinded the Orion Order's bounty system, it had shattered the illusion of control they'd held for centuries. But in that silence, new dangers stirred. The Order was vast, and its shadows deeper than Kael had imagined. Across the void, whispers traveled faster than light, rumors of the rogue Executor's rebellion, rumors that spread hope to those crushed under Orion's heel, refugees from star systems erased, from the records, cyborg enclaves abandoned by their creators. Even dissident factions within the Order itself began to emerge. They called themselves the Heirs of Silence. In a hidden asteroid monastery orbiting a dying white dwarf, Kael convened the First Council. The room was a patchwork of alien technologies and ancient relics, holograms flickering beside stone tablets, synthetic voices humming beneath whispered chants. The leaders were as diverse as the galaxy itself. A half-mechanical shaman from the Tsarn Dominion, her eyes glowing with neural implants. A war-forged sentinel from the exiled Synth Rebellion, metal plates scarred from countless battles. A former Orion philosopher turned outlaw, his face obscured by a mask carved from dark crystal. They looked at Kael with wary hope. "We stand at a crossroads," Kael began, voice steady despite the fatigue beneath his skin. "The Order has fractured, but it will not yield without a fight. We must build a network silent, invisible, to protect what remains." Maya stepped forward. "We have intelligence on the Order's new Project Tan, ancient weapon hidden beyond the Veil Nebula. If activated, it could end entire star systems." The room fell silent. Kael's mind raced. The weapon was more than just power. It was a message, a reminder that the Order would stop at nothing to reclaim control. "We cannot let that happen," he said. "But first, we need allies. Systems that remember freedom. Systems willing to rise." The shaman spoke then, her voice a melodic echo. "There are those who have forgotten silence itself. We must awaken them." Kael nodded. "Then we begin." In the weeks that followed, emissaries traveled like shadows, carrying encrypted messages and promises of resistance. Former Orion outposts became sanctuaries. Hidden relays fed information to the heirs. Old grudges were set aside for survival. But not everyone welcomed the uprising. Betrayal lurked in the silence. One night, a trusted envoy was found dead. A cryptic code etched into his chest, a warning in the language of the Order. Kael realized then that the war was not just for survival. It was for the soul of the galaxy. As the Heirs of Silence prepared for the storm ahead, Kael stood beneath the cold stars, feeling the weight of countless lives on his shoulders. The galaxy was listening, and now it was their turn to speak. The rebellion was no longer a whisper in the void. It had become a storm. Kael watched the starfield through the viewport of the Spectre's edge, its fragmented glow a tapestry of distant suns and hidden threats. The loss of the Civ had crippled the Order's hunting network, but it had also galvanized them. The Phoenix Uprising was no small rebellion. It was an existential challenge. The Order's response came swiftly, out of the black. A fleet emerged, a procession of death carved from dark alloys and ancient hate. The Void Talons, the Order's elite strike force, dispatched to quash the insurgency before it could spread. Kael stood on the bridge, the weight of command pressing heavy against his ribs. Maya approached, her expression grim. "They've tracked us," she said. "Void Talons heading straight for Bracker 12. Kael's fingers clenched. "They'll find a ghost." But ghosts are not invincible. As the enemy fleet closed in, Kael activated the station's defensive matrix, a jury-rigged system scavenged from forgotten tech. Energy shields flickered alive, pulsating like a heartbeat around their fragile sanctuary. The battle began with the silence of space shattered by the roar of plasma and the crackle of ion blasts. Fighters darted between warships, weaving death in streaks of light and shadow. Kael piloted the Spectre's edge into the fray, launching countermeasures and guiding allies through the chaos. Every shot, every maneuver was a dance with fate. But then, amidst the storm, a new signal pierced the comms, a coded transmission, unmistakably from deep within Orion's own ranks. A voice, gold, calculating, familiar. "I know what you seek, Kael," it said, "and I offer you a choice." The bridge fell silent. Maya frowned. "Who is it?" Kael's eyes narrowed. "Someone who once called me brother." The transmission ended as abruptly as it began. Kael faced the crew. "We're not just fighting Orion, we're fighting ourselves." The enemy fleet was no longer just hunters. They were pawns in a larger game. Kael's next move would determine the fate of the uprising and the galaxy itself. Kael stared at the blinking console, the cryptic message still reverberating in his mind. The voice had been unmistakable, cold, precise, and painfully familiar. Someone who once called him brother was reaching out from the shadows, offering a choice. But what choice could it be? And why now? The Spectre's edge hummed softly beneath his feet, a fragile sanctuary in a galaxy on the brink of chaos. Round him, the crew moved with practiced urgency, their eyes flickering between weapons panels and the vast, unforgiving void beyond the viewport. Maya stepped closer, her voice steady but laced with tension. We can't trust whoever sent that message. It could be a trap. Kael's jaw tightened. Or it could be the key to ending this. He reached out, tapping into the encrypted comm channel. Open a secure link. I want to hear him out. Static hissed. Then the transmission cleared. The figure that appeared was clad in the same executor armor Kael once wore, but the helmet was different, sleek, angular, marked with a crimson sigil. I am Orion, the figure said, voice resonating with authority and something deeper, regret. Once your brother in arms, now a sentinel of the Order's true will. Kael's breath caught. Orion was not just a name from the past. He was the shadow Kael had tried to outrun, the living embodiment of everything the Order demanded: obedience, control, sacrifice. You don't have to fight this alone, Orion continued. Join me. Help me rebuild the Order, not as it was, but as it must be. With vision, with order. Kael's mind raced. The man before him was his mirror, the path he could have taken if not for the spark of empathy, the mutation Orion called corruption. No, Kael said, voice low but firm. I fight to free, not to enslave. Orion's eyes glowed behind the visor. Then you leave me no choice. The transmission cut abruptly. The crew tensed. Maya clenched her fists. He'll come for us, Kael nodded. And we'll be ready. Outside the station, the void seemed to pulse with anticipation. The war was no longer just between fleets or ideologies. It was a battle for the soul of every star, every world, every silent whisper across the cosmos. Kael faced the rising storm, knowing the greatest fight was still ahead. The warning came just before dawn, a cold, piercing alarm that shattered the fragile calm aboard the Spectre's edge. Sensors blared red, tracking multiple fast-approaching contacts emerging from the shadow of a nearby asteroid belt. Orion's fleet. Kael's heart pounded as the enemy vessels slipped through the darkness like predatory wolves. Sleek and silent, this was no random attack. It was a calculated strike meant to end the Phoenix uprising before it could ignite fully. Battle stations, Kael ordered. Voice steady despite the surge of adrenaline. Prepare for boarding. The crew moved with practiced precision. Fighters scrambled to their cockpits. Energy shields hummed to life, painting the ship in a protective glow. Kael grabbed his fusion blade, a relic from his past, feeling its familiar weight in his hands. The first salvo tore through the void, lasers carving bright scars across the Spectre's edge's hull. Explosions rippled, metal groaned, and the station trembled. But the real danger was still coming. The boarding pods launched. Cutting through the vacuum in silent streaks, Kael and Maya led the counterstrike, locking down corridors and hailing their allies. Amid the chaos, a shadow moved, a figure cloaked in dark armor. Stepping through the smoke and debris, Orion. Kael's breath caught as the two faced each other across the wreckage of a shattered hallway. Kael. Orion's voice echoed, cold but tinged with something unspoken. You always were stubborn. Kael tightened his grip. And you always chose chains over freedom. The duel began, a clash of steel and ideology. Each strike was more than a fight. It was a battle for the future of the galaxy. Sparks flew as their blades collided, the hum of energy slicing through the tension. Maya and the crew fought fiercely round them, holding the line against overwhelming odds. But Kael knew the war was not just in this corridor. It was in every choice, every sacrifice, every moment of doubt. With a swift feint, Kael disarmed Orion, pressing the fusion blade to his chest. This ends now, Kael said, voice resolute. Orion met his gaze. Perhaps, or perhaps it is only the beginning. Before Kael could react, an explosion rocked the station, throwing them apart. The battle was far from over. The explosion swallowed the corridor in flame and debris, tearing apart the fragile balance between Kael and Orion. Kael hit the floor hard, pain searing through his ribs, but his mind stayed sharp-focused. Maya's voice crackled through the comms, frantic but determined. Kael, you all right? We've got multiple breaches. Enemy boarding teams are flooding the lower decks. Kael pushed himself up, ignoring the ache. Hold the line. We can't let them take the command core. The Spectre's edge shuddered again as enemy forces pushed deeper into the station's bowels. The Order's soldiers moved with ruthless precision, trained, relentless, and fueled by the conviction Lorien had instilled. But so was the uprising. Kael found himself face to face with a group of elite guards, their armor marked with the crimson sigil of the Order. Each step forward was a gamble, each breath a calculated risk. Through the smoke, a sudden burst of light, a grenade detonated near Kael, throwing him back. Pain exploded in his arm. He gritted his teeth and drew his sidearm, firing on instinct. The enemy faltered, but the numbers were overwhelming. Suddenly, a shadow loomed, a squad of heirs, led by the war-forged sentinel Kael had met months ago. They crashed through the enemy lines, their synchronized assault turning the tide. Kael grabbed Maya's arm as she rushed past, her eyes blazing with fierce resolve. We need to retreat. Regroup. The station is going down. No, Kael said, voice ironclad. Not yet. We take back the core, or we die trying. They fought through the maze-like corridors, every step closer to the heart of the station, a battle of wills. The deeper they went, the more the air thickened with tension, and the unmistakable hum of a device powering up. Kael's breath caught. The weapon Lorien warned about. Ahead, in the command chamber, a pulsing orb of energy hung suspended, casting eerie shadows. It was the Order's last hope, or their ultimate weapon of destruction. Maya moved to the control panel, hacking with lightning speed. We have minutes, maybe less. Kael stood guard, fusion blade ready. The countdown had begun. The pulsing orb of energy in the command chamber cast twisted shadows on the walls, a living heartbeat of destruction. Kael's eyes locked onto it, every instinct screaming that failure was not an option. Behind him, Maya's fingers flew over the console, her neural implants interfacing with the station's ancient systems. Almost there, she muttered, sweat beading on her brow. Just a few more seconds. The countdown on the holographic display flickered dangerously close to zero. Outside the chamber, the sounds of battle shouts, blaster fire, and the thunder of heavy boots echoed faintly, as if distant. Here, the urgency was absolute and singular. Kael's thoughts drifted for a moment to Lorien, the man who had once been his brother in arms, now the embodiment of the Order's cruelty. If only he could reach him, pull him back from this abyss. A sudden burst of static disrupted the calm as a voice crackled through the comms, harsh, commanding. Kael, you cannot stop what is coming. The Order's vision will prevail. It was Lorien. Kael gritted his teeth, blocking the transmission. No, not today. Maya's eyes flashed as the last sequence completed. I'm shutting it down now. The orb's glow began to fade, its furious pulse slowing, then weakening. But the relief was short-lived. The door to the chamber slammed open. Lorien stood there, his armor scorched, eyes burning with a mix of fury and something almost human. So close, he sneered, but not close. Enough. Kael stepped forward, blade ignited. This ends here. The duel resumed, faster, fiercer, two warriors clashing over the fate of countless lives. Energy flared, sparks flew, and the command chamber trembled under the force of their battle. Suddenly, with a calculated move, Lorien aimed a strike at the console. Maya shouted, diving to block the blow, but the impact sent her sprawling, unconscious. Kael's fury exploded. He disarmed Lorien, pinning him against the wall. Why, Lorien? Kael demanded. Why betray everything we fought for? Lorien's expression softened for a brief moment. Because order is peace, chaos destroys. Kael shook his head. Freedom is worth fighting for. He deactivated the weapon fully, watching as the orb flickered out, darkness swallowing its menace. Sirens wailed. Reinforcements were arriving for both sides. But the balance had shifted. Kael looked down at Lorien, defeated but alive. This war isn't over, Kael said quietly. But today we won. The echoes of battle faded into the distant hum of emergency systems. The Spectre's edge floated amid the ruins of the station, battered but breathing. Outside, the stars seemed indifferent, silent witnesses to the endless conflict raging between wills, and Worlds. Kael stood by the viewport, watching the flickering lights of distant ships, some allies, others uncertain. The victory had come at a cost. The weapon was deactivated. But the scars ran deeper. Maya lay in the medbay, her breathing steady, but her body fragile. Kael kept a silent vigil, the weight of guilt pressing heavy. He had won the fight, but not without loss. The Council of the Heirs gathered in the station's war room, faces worn but resolute. The half-mechanical shaman's eyes glowed softly as she spoke. The Order's grip weakens, but its shadow remains. We must be vigilant. Kael nodded. Lorian survived. He's a threat we can't ignore. A murmur passed through the room. The former philosopher adjusted his mask thoughtfully. Perhaps there is still a chance to reach him. Kael sighed. I hope so, for all our sakes. Outside the council chamber, a faint signal blinked on Kael's comma-secure channel. He hesitated, then opened it. A familiar voice, softer than before. Kael, it's time we talked, Lorian. The war was far from over, but perhaps the fight could change. Kael looked out into the void. The endless black dotted with stars that still held hope. The phoenix had risen from the ashes, but its flight had only just begun. Kael activated the secure calm channel, his heart pounding with cautious anticipation. The cold void outside the specter's edge seemed to hold its breath. As Lorian's face appeared on the holographic display, shadows playing across his sharp features, eyes still glowing faintly. With the crimson light of the Order, Kael, Lorian began, his voice steady but softer than before. The war has changed us both. You fight for freedom. I fight for order. But perhaps there is a path beyond this endless conflict. Kael tightened his grip on the console. What do you mean? For decades, the Order enforced control through fear and suppression. But the galaxy is shifting. New powers rise, forces beyond us. I propose a truce and alliance to confront what's coming. Maya, recovering beside him, watched silently. What forces? Kael asked, suspicion sharpening his tone. Ancient threats buried in the void, Lorian replied. Creatures older than the stars themselves, awakened by our wars. If we continue to fight each other, we will all perish. Kael looked away, conflicted. Could he trust Lorian? Could the man who had once tried to destroy him truly seek peace? Meet me at the Helios outpost, Lorian said, voice resolute. There, we can decide the fate of humanity and the galaxy. The transmission ended, leaving Kael staring into the void once more. A new chapter was beginning.